So we have two types of nerve tissue in our nervous system, and that's the neurons and the support cells. And we'll spend most of the time on the neurons, so we'll talk about the support cells as well. You need to know what these are and what they do. The neurons actually transmit an electrical signal. Sort of like when we get a current in a wire, although a little bit different, and it's kind of ingenious the way that it does it. We'll talk about that, where it has these chemical gradients. And so while the support cells are neuroglia. I don't know how to say this word. Maybe some of you do know. But the support cells provide various roles of support for the neurons, such as the myelin sheath. That's one of the support cells that you'll need to know. We'll get to that later. And the support cells, the myelin sheath, will help the electrical signals to flow in the neurons. We're concerned mainly with the neurons. So the neurons consist of a cell body with dendrites and axons. This part right here is our cell body. Our dendrites are these tree-like structures. And then the axon is here. By the way, this is our myelin sheath. It is a sheath around the axon. And then here at the end, we have the axon terminal synapses. Like the end of the axon. That's what terminal there means. You'll need to know the different parts of the neuron. The cell body is the main part of the neuron. It controls the flow of electric signals. The dendrites receive input signals. And sends to the cell body. So we get, there'll be another neuron over here with your axon terminals that will end right here, and they'll pass information onto the dendrites, which will go into the cell body, and then that'll move through the axon to the next neuron through the terminal synapses. The axon transmits the signal and sends to the dendrites. On the next neuron. There are different types of neurons. This is sort of your stereotypical neuron, but they're in this shape. You imagine that the electrical signal flows from right to left. So that picks up the signal here in the dendrites onto the cell body through the axon and over to the terminal synapses of the axon. The synapses these are also called the axon terminals. These are the connection between neurons. There's this great YouTube channel called 2-Minute Neuroscience, and I'll link that from the web page, but it has a brief description of the neuron and how it works that covers a lot of what we've talked about here. So the neuron has lots of functions, and you can break the different types of neurons into 3 different types. First is the sensory neuron that conducts input signals to the central nervous system. Conducts like you conduct electricity, so it takes input signals to the central nervous system. Oh no, this is really hot. And the sensory neurons take that information and sends it to the brain or the spinal cord. The motor neurons conduct CNS signals, central nervous system signals. Remember, CNS, central nervous system. PNS is peripheral nervous system. So the central nervous system signals to the effector organs. Muscles, that's what we usually think of when we think of these motor neurons, but they don't have to be muscles, they can be glands as well. So if you have some central nervous system signal that's sent out to say, want you to make your body warmer for fighting an infection or whatever, then it could send signals to your various glands. And then the interneurons is in between the sensory and the motor neurons. Of course, you should know these three types of neurons. I'll ask you what they do, what they are, and how they affect the body.